you fiction book lovers. It's a sad day today. Where's my tissue? It's a sad day, and I'm going to tell you why. Because we're at the end of book 1. I'm about to read you the last chapter, so I'm not even going to use my fake studio microphone today, but we'll keep the fake studio lights as I read you the last chapter. But aside from being a sad day of being on the last chapter, it's also a happy day because then we're going to jump to book 2. This is a 6-book fiction series I created with mental health awareness meets Christian fiction as a nurse of 30 years and still going on the front lines of emergency and mental health. I created this series to advocate for people going through struggles and the frontline workers helping them, not to mention their own relationship drama, inner thought struggles, and just everything going on. So we're going to get to the last chapter. And as I said, this is the Mental Files. It's a 6-part series available. Also, a link on my website. And I also, to make it almost free and easier, also put it in one book, The Mental Files First 6 Stories edition by Nurse Ann. That's me. And so we're going to jump into that. And then after a break, we'll jump into book 2. You can follow along on the podcast for free, the Audiobook Podcast. You can also follow along and just get the complete series. It's really only a couple dollars on Kindle, and you're going to enjoy it because it's full of adventure, action, advocacy, and awareness. So let's jump in. Ooh, I said I wasn't going to use it, but I can't help it. So anyway, we're going to jump into the last chapter of the Mental Files. You've been through all the danger, action, romance, suspense, faith, and inspiration. I'm not going to go back over what happened. I'm going to let you listen to the podcast or read that because there's a lot to catch up on. So I'm just going to get into the last chapter now. And the last chapter, after we finish the dangerous rescue and damsels in distress and pity party and all that, chapter 24 is the mentor. So let's jump into this and then you can catch up. 2 weeks later, the girls decided to get together again. And you remember it was after all that dangerous rescue, all the danger and trauma they'd been, the breakup, the rocky relationships, just everything. Oh well, I'll let you go back and find that. So 2 weeks later, the girls decided to get together again. So Wednesday before church, Angela and caseworker Lita, they took some clothes to the group home to see how Julie was doing. That was the patient that they rescued off the street who was battling those frightening hallucinations, trying to fend for herself with all the predators chasing after her, that lost little lamb. Anyway, they got her in the nice group home and she's expecting. And so now, the nurse and the caseworker, they want to follow up. So they went to the group home and brought them some clothes to see how they're doing. So giving the ladies a big hug, Julie beamed with excitement at her visitors. The nurse and the caseworker were so relieved that she loved her new home and how well she was being taken care of, because before she was out on the street and fending for herself. So this is a good thing. Before they left, the nurse asked if she could come a couple times a month and lead an encouragement group for all the girls at the home. Overhearing the question, all the girls shouted a resounding yes as they rushed over to hug the nurse and the case worker. Now, on the ride to church, Angela asked Lita about her relationship with Leon. Remember that relationship with all the red flags? And she didn't know whether to go with her faith or with her feelings. You'll have to go back and catch up and see how that progressed. So anyway, Lita said, "I really do miss him," she answered. "But it makes me nervous. He seems to be so against going to church with me and all that." "Well, it sounds like you're doing the right thing to pray and take your time," encouraged her friend. As they pulled into the church parking lot, they were surprised to see Leon with a brand new polo shirt on and standing next to Mars. Remember that young man they rescued from the life of crime? He fell into that because he didn't have any mentors in his life. Sorry, getting back to the story. So Leon was standing there in the church parking lot with a brand new shirt on, standing next to Mars, the young man. Pleasantly curious, Lita asked Leon, "What are they doing? What are you doing?" Lita and Angela, You two have been such an inspiration in my life. I decided to try out this church thing. And since I'm mentoring Mars here, he's thinking about becoming a police officer. He asked if he could come along. So, what do you two say? Can we join you tonight? Asked the humbled policeman. Giddy and giggling like a schoolgirl, Lita jumped up and gave Leon a big hug. And so that's the end of book 1, The Mental Files, Sheep Among Wolves. You're going to want to check that out and check out this lady that was battling those frightening thought disorders and hallucinations and just all the negative thoughts and the danger she was in, and also the man that was on the bridge contemplating the unthinkable due to relapse and depression, and find out how the frontline workers, the nurses, the caseworkers, the doctors, the therapists, the mental health workers, the paramedics, the family, and just everyone, the community, the church was able to get involved in their lives. And so next time we'll jump into book 2, which is Dr. John Doe, The Mental Files, Dr. John Doe. You're going to love that mystery and that intrigue as it continues on with the danger and the action from the first story. As I said, it's available. There's a link on my website, nurseann.com. That's Ann with an E. And there you can have a link to the books and also a couple devotionals I did and the free audiobook on the podcast, not to mention so much more inspirational wellness for mental health and just lives of wellness and inspiration and creativity. So you're going to want to follow this series. Once again, I'm a nurse of 30 years and still going, and this is about action, adventure, advocacy, and awareness. And so on the podcast, after each reading, each chapter, we break it apart as it relates to our own life and inner thought, drama and struggles, and get some biblical prescriptions. So just my thoughts and overview of that book 1 was, as I said, sheep among wolves. There's a lot of people in the world, in our lives, in our families. Sometimes it's our own self where maybe we don't know how to navigate a certain situation. We're kind of fending for ourselves. We see loved ones or others fending for themselves, whether it's homelessness, whether it's addiction, whether it's mental health battles. There's so many different reasons. And so I really encourage in this series, in this ministry, to even for you to be mentors and examples and helpers in other people's lives. And we meet a lot of people in this series that jump in and do that. We also meet people, whether it's community, the church, where some of them don't want to help because they're just used to their comfortable lives, just seeing what's right in front of them, and how the involvement of the frontline workers, and just see what role God does play in the outcome to change the hearts and lives of people. And so I hope that you will continue to be a mentor in the lives of others, to remember to care for, there's even verses caring for orphans and widows in their distress, caring for strangers, caring for the downcast. This is something that God promotes in his word and something that you see in the life of Jesus. And there's other examples in life. I think of even Mother Teresa and her crew, where they reached out to help people that were abandoned and at the end of their rope and unloved and cast aside by so many people. And I pray that we will be those examples, those mentors, those helpers. And I know that our lives are busy, but no matter, your work, your school, your community, that you can allow God to open your eyes, that you can try to live kind of more of that unhurried life, even though we're busy. There's things that we can do to slow down and notice others. And we don't always have time to stop and, do everything, even like that Good Samaritan did. But even, eye contact in a moment of listening and showing that you care about other people's situations and just that you do care. Sometimes that could be a lot for somebody going through stress, for being bullied, for being picked on. We get into all that. So we talked about the sheep among wolves and the thought battles. And then book 2 is Dr. John Doe. We're going to talk about memory struggles and Alzheimer's and more danger and action and mentors, relationship red flags, relationship struggles. And then book 3 is The Mental Files, A Tent Under the Bridge. Homelessness is a real issue in so many situations, so many countries, so many communities. And we're going to look at why some people choose to stay in that life, to go back to that life, how the frontline workers, the church, and the community can help them. And also, once again, why sometimes people don't want to help. And we're going to really look at that. Look at the relationship dramas, the inner thought struggles of the workers. And then the next book is the Mental Files Defenders of the Weak. And once again, this is the theme, a biblical theme of helping the weak, the downtrodden, the cast aside, how this is actually a great life purpose and mission for anyone, whether you're struggling even with thoughts of sadness, depression, anxiety. Helping others is huge. It's huge in the arsenal of your battle to get your mind back, your peace back. Helping others just takes you kind of outside of the moment of the problems, and seeing what others are going through can really shed perspective on your life and your thought battles. And you're going to meet a young lady being bullied and picked on and dealing with anxiety battles, and she's going to meet a stranger in a similar struggle, see if they can help each other or if the danger and the opposition is just too overwhelming. Find out what happens once again in this relationship with the red flags and all. And then second to the last is also important. As I said, I'm a nurse of 30 years and still going on the front lines, and I see a lot of people going through struggles. This is called the Mental Files Ready, Willing, and Able. We highlight disabilities, so-called limitations and labels, people feeling like they're in a box and maybe feeling down on themselves. And it shines a light on people's abilities no matter what they're going through. We all have abilities, talents, passions, things, no matter what our life situation is. You could actually shine and be the real hero in a lot of situations. You're going to meet a young lady named Lee Song and see her superhero power, find out more about the danger, the action, the relationships, and also find out why the the mental health nurse gets sent to the ER. What happened to her? You'll find out. And then the season finale, because this also is going to be a television drama series. And so the season finale is the Mental Files Out of Control. We talk about relapse, addiction, recovery, patients that are entitled and give the nurses a hard time. We get into more about the paramedics, the frontline workers, the therapists, the caseworkers, so on, the church, the community, and celebrate recovery. There's so much going on here, and there's a surprise in here, the culmination of this relationship. See how it turns out. I can't tell you much more. You're going to have to check out the series. You might even just want to read it and follow along, because the podcast is not just me reading it. It's also, like I said, breaking apart, talking about it. It's kind of like a book club, how it relates to our own life, our inner thought struggles, our get some biblical prescriptions to help navigate this life journey, relationship dramas. I can't tell you enough. The Mental Files First 6 Stories edition by Nurse Ann. I am an indie author, so please support my work. I promise you're going to love it. I filled it with action, adventure, advocacy, and awareness. And please, if you do get a hold of the copy, please leave a review, hopefully a good one, on Amazon, because I'm an indie author and I'm buried way down there below all the books and all the authors. So really, nobody knows about this yet, but it's a great series. It's a great series to highlight that mental health struggles and frontline workers and the community and caretakers and family and so on. So I hope that you get a hold of it. Continue listening to the podcast. We'll probably have an intermission podcast with just some more fun and interesting things about the ministry and about life. So thank you for listening, and you made it to the end of Book 1, The Mental Files, Sheep Among Wolves. Now check out The Mental Files First 6 Stories edition. I'm going to take my fake microphone, Hollywood studio lights, and I'm going to see you next time.